Vic, as a director, I think, enjoyed much more directing than acting. He was very good at his craft. It had been his desire to direct.
Vic wanted to direct, I think, with all of his heart. I mean, this was something that he dreamed about, thought about.
If he was thinking about directing while he was acting, he kept it a secret. First time I heard that he wanted to direct, I was a little bit surprised because I hadn't, I didn't sense that in him. Probably should have.
Vic was becoming stronger and stronger in the show. He was growing, he was developing. He didn't quite have the position to insist upon directing, which he did have by the second year, third year, fourth year, and fifth year. That didn't mean he didn't want to direct, and he wasn't paying attention and wasn't watching. He was.
I would believe that it was his only opportunity to really learn the behavior of a director. And I'm sure that he may have observed Altman, who was really quite free.
Always paid attention to what Altman did, what Kennedy did, what the other directors, or some other good directors too. He was very respectful of Peiser. And so he really wanted to direct, and he did.
The scripts that he got, nobody said, you must direct this, obviously. So he was given a choice ahead of time in terms of, it depends on how far ahead of time, whether it was in a story form or whether it was in a script form. And if Vic liked it, he would do it. Nobody could say, you must direct this episode.
Vic always wanted the actor, and I'm sure the cinematographer, to bring whatever they had to the table. And whatever he thought was good, he wanted to see whatever else was out there. That's the soul of an artist.
The Pillbox, which was Vic's first show as a director. Whether he was nervous or not, up to the point where he had his second or third drink, and then he became loose as a goose. And we prepared half the show on the set and the other half at the retake room, having a few beers. Vic had the hammer and he knew it. He made the most of the outside stuff. You'll see stuff out there that it took us like 3 times longer to shoot it than normal. Vic, as I say, nervous, if he was, he kept it inside of him. He was confident with the actors, he was confident with what he could do. I think he felt very comfortable, actually.
I think the one that he liked to direct was the one in which he was not too involved, so that he could have all the time to oversee his work. To directing and playing at the same time it must be a very difficult thing, to be able to concentrate and then see the visual and the result of his directions.
On Gloria Among Men, there were, good and bad. It was tough and yet it was easy. It was easy in the sense that it was on the back lot. But it was tough because there was a lot of night shooting and everything.
Fire! He wasn't strong at all in screen direction. And all screen direction is, comes off of 2 heads, they're talking to each other. This guy is looking camera right, and this guy's looking camera left. Okay.
And I think I've heard Mike had a little trouble with Vic in his left to right direction. It was simply because he knew. But when he's in the middle of setting up a shot, he would say, okay, so-and-so and so-and-so, and then Mike would go up or go up and say, Vic, he's looking camera right, he should be looking left. What? Yeah, okay, move it. I mean, just had to be reminded. He was aware of camera right and left.
Vic Morrow was very quiet on the set when he directed. He wasn't a yeller or a screamer. He would just ask for something and he'd get it, which was nice.
The crew, there's no way to explain how supportive they were of Vic. They broke their you-know-what to help him. Because Vic was so nice to everybody. He was never the star, so they killed themselves for him. Well, I know that when Vic had a chance, he would use nothing but handheld, which was a little unique. We all used handheld, but he did it more so than anyone, especially when you have a battle scene with nothing but battle in it. So he was probably the most avant-garde as far as using handheld, where maybe I'd be a little reticent or wouldn't ask him to do it. I wouldn't say, okay, take the other camera apart and put the other one together and all that kind of crap. But Vic could say, we'll wait. Vic wanted some stuff that was very unique, and Emmett gave it to him. Emmett was the easiest cameraman in the world to work with. You could tell Emmett basically what you wanted, and he would light basically. You could be as specific as you wanted, and he would light specifically. You could be as cuckoo as you wanted, and he would light cuckoo. So he got a kick out of doing things that he wouldn't be able to do normally. And Vic had some unbelievable shots, camera-wise and everything else. It was like avant-garde stuff then. But Emmett was not a problem, never a problem.
Vic Morrow, in directing guest stars, and there were some pretty big ones too, was very good. They respected him because they knew he was such a fine actor. And he had a way of quietly getting their attention, and they'd do exactly what he asked for. He was very good with them. And they liked him, they respected him.
When Vic directed, he was Vic the way he was when he was acting as well. Vic was slow and confident, and he was slow and confident, and then slower but confident. Everybody was happy around him because they knew no one's going to come down and say cut it out or you kick your butt off the set.
With the regulars on the show, they had learned to respect and love him because he never hogged anything as an actor. He didn't take center stage and push people out of the way and step on their lines and insist me, me, me. And so, they got along extremely well. So it was very simple for him to direct them. Boy, they just did. Anything he said was, well, besides he was the sergeant. He was the boss,
Hills Are for Heroes might have been one of his ideas originally, and so he had it both ways. He had his choice of what was there, or he had a choice of saying, I'm going to do one in 3 weeks. How about this for an idea? And they would go and write it. So it was a combination of both things. But all the time, Vic was not dogmatic about it. He was always, he was really nice Vic. He was always nice Vic.
Before I met him, in the 50s, I went to see a movie called Blackboard Jungle. And there was this intensely scary, mean James Dean type. His name was Vic Morrow. He was just a kid. And when I was later cast to be in this movie, I was terrified. I was absolutely convinced that he was the meanest man who ever lived. And I went into his office, and he was very quiet. He was very affectionate and nice, but he was demure. He sat back and was supportive. I think it was just the two of us, and I read for him, and he was nice, and I left. And I said, no, I don't, he's still a mean guy. And then we got to shooting, and shortly into the show, I was overacting, as I always did, and this frightening man, Vic Morrow, this director, had been quite quiet. He always said, well, go do what you want to do, and he put his hands around me and put his forehead on my forehead and said, you're very gifted, Tony. Just listen to Joey and let it go from there, okay? I love you. This was the meanest man who ever lived.
Hey, Doc, there's some bunks in the back here for the wounded.
I liked the show a lot, and I used to watch the show. It was one of my favorite shows to watch. I remember having things I wanted to bring to the character, and Vic let me. He was really wonderful about that. He'd let you, try any damn thing you wanted to do, and if he didn't like it, he'd say, let's do it again, and do it from this point of view. Especially the stuff with Tony Call. That was such a friendship, that we had, such a battlefield friendship. I thought that was so important. It was so important to to the flavor and texture of the show.
Us Germans make the best soldiers in the world. Ought to come out with this with a chest full of medals.
Bravo.
We knew we were going to be overscheduled practically from the first day. I mean, Vic told us. I said, so we're going to get this done in 12 days. He said, there's not a chance in hell of this thing being done in 12 days. He said, forget it. We're going to be out here for about 4 weeks.
There was nothing extraordinary about his preparation. Whatever he wanted, he got. He was prepared. That's what I don't understand. I think, as I say, he did himself a disservice by going as long as he did on shows, because I don't think he needed to do it. As far as takes on the set is concerned, I don't think he did more. I think he did more rehearsals probably than anyone else. But as far as on the set, what he would do is he wouldn't pick up as often as the average director would. In other words, if we were doing a 2-page scene, a 3-page scene, and as a director I liked it all but one spot, I would say, print it, I love it, pick up over here. Well, Vic would usually say, let's just do it from the top. You know, the actors loved it, they loved it, and then he'd say print them both, or print 6 of them, print 9 of them. You know, he could print as many as he wanted to.
The whole division is moving up this morning, and we're part of it. We're going out and take that hill.
Vic did like ordinary shots. And, you know, I mean, he was like half a face here and so on and so on. And he was like doing film noir, as it were. Preferably a piece of somebody in every shot. And at the time, mostly it was close-ups. But Vic was always putting a piece of somebody in the screen. He was very unique and ahead of his time. Never worried about somebody being a little out of focus. If you're going to cut me here and somebody else is here, somebody's got to suffer a little bit focus-wise. So he'd say, it's okay, I don't care. You know, and Emmett would go, somebody's going to be a little, don't worry about it. And he wouldn't worry about it. He could play 5 pages that way. He didn't care. Yeah, no, he was bold in that sense.
He was daring and wanted to go as far as he could. Some of the stuff was very difficult that we did. I always felt that I would be just fine if I followed directions. Well, the first time I'd ever come up against a lot of explosives in a scene was when the ground just started blowing up all over us. We had been very carefully directed. I said, are they sure? Do they really know where they put this? I mean, the guy falls down over here. He looks dead. Some of the stuntmen are doing incredible flips and falls and stuff. I start thinking of my famous stories where somebody put a real bullet in the gun, you know. I said, did they make any mistakes here? This stuff really going to blow up? I've never seen anything like that in my life. I remember some close-ups I did where the squibs would go right off in front, just like that. And I sometimes thought, because I knew they were coming, I might be more scared if I didn't know they were coming.
We all had a lot of respect for Vic and his opinions and his ability. Vic gave us some direction, walking through the mud. And Rick is the one who said, okay, guys, let's go. Anything Vic wants, he gets. And it was, you know, it was really kind of fun. It was nice. It was really esprit de corps, you know.
When Vic directed Rick in Hills of Four Heroes, he got it out of him. He worked on him.
Vic would get very close to Rick and whisper in his ear. Mainly is what he did. I could never hear what he was saying. I always wanted to. But I could imagine him, he'd be talking about his mother who had passed away a couple of years ago, because he knew Rick very well, how much it meant to him. And he'd get him in the mood, so that when they go in and to do the scene, they're right ready to cry. And out it comes. It was remarkable what he did with him.
Lying out there on that lousy, stinking hill.
I even remember Rick being excited about something he did in a scene. I remember it generally. I don't remember what the scene was. But I remember him being sort of, hey, I like that. You know, he felt good about it.
And boy, Rick he performed like a Trojan. He really did, you know. That was a tough show for him. It was tougher for him, not physically, but emotionally than any of the guys. Rick had to slowly be broken down by this terrible thing he was forced to do because he was ordered to do it.
I had an idea that when I was going to die, that what I should do is get so crazed by the Nazis shooting down on me that I would take my machine gun and I'd just crazed and start screaming at the Nazis, and I would stand up, open fire. So I would get hit, and we were on a hill, and I'd fall back dying, and then I would fall down and I would roll all the way down the hill.
Vic got the idea of the camera being Morgan at one point, and my running to Morgan to see if I could save him, if I could do something to help him. So the cameraman strapped the Aeroflex to his head with a very wide rubber band. It was actually about almost 2 inches thick rubber band, and he tied it around his head and strapped the thing to his eye so he could hold it, focus at the same time.
He slowly, stands up and he's shooting the thing, and then with the camera he starts backing down the hill, and then he falls down with the camera and rolls all the way down until he stops.
It was one of those wonderful things that absolutely worked beautifully. When we saw it, it was applause time. It was really terrific. I thought it was great. And the cameraman was so proud of himself. He got a bad cut above his eye, but he didn't care. All he cared about was he thought this was a great shot, a great idea.
It was this extraordinary creation of the cameraman, the photographer, and Vic.
Vic Morrow's use of the handheld camera, I mean, he had been watching it being used, and he understood what you could do with it. He understood the limitations. We had John Penner, big lumbering character, who was the camera operator, second camera operator. We always had two operators all the time. We shot with two cameras. He knew that Penner couldn't make it smooth. But, he was watching dailies every day, and he'd go in and he'd see the dailies. And he realized this was working for him. The shakiness, he was sort of following the people. He would get from one place to the other, but, he's running and he's lumbering and the camera's jostling around. And it gave a wonderful feeling of newsreel, of being there, of being real.
When we were chasing the tank, we were right behind those treads. And the tank was moving out. And it was scary. It was really a little on the frightening side, because we didn't know, somebody could have tripped. There were a million potholes out there because they'd been blowing up half the hillside, for 2 weeks. So it was it was pretty hairy. But nobody ever balked about anything. We just did it. He said, chase the tank. We grab our rifles and chase the tank. Everyone was incredibly enthusiastic about everything he was doing, about everything Vic came up with. They liked him. They had great respect for him. When he would come up with an idea like that, no matter how insane it seemed, everybody wanted to try it. Vic, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
Schedule? Are we talking about schedule and Vic Morrow? That's a dichotomy of thinking there. There is no schedule for Vic Morrow.
Vic Morrow was not concerned about being overpowered. He knew he had a good thing going. He knew what he was doing was right, and it was.
Well, I think that he wanted to terminate the Hills of For Hero, whatever the cost. I mean, he gambled on that, and I think ABC just, gave in.
I remember a lot of big black cars showing up, and they would stop production, and Vic would disappear.
The little memos would come down, and someone would say something, a little smile. He'd go right on doing what he's doing. I mean, it never activated anything. Vic never went faster or dropped a shot that he wanted to get or changed anything he was doing. He just kept on doing it.
I have a memory of raised voices. I know that they were hysterical. I know that the company was hysterical about what Vic Morrow was doing.
But we were not possibly ourselves, the cast, aware of these in-office problems,
And he wasn't making a big show of it either. He wasn't that kind of a person. He wasn't saying, screw you, Seligman, and the other folks up high there, Gene Levitt. This is what he was going to do, and he did it.
I remember vaguely some discussions about that from, I think, some of the other cast members, that he had earned this, that he had had the right to go over schedule because he was a gifted director and he was going to make this work.
He was much more humorous than everybody thinks, because he looked so dramatic, but he had a pretty good sense of humor. And he was a little crazy,
Vic's dressing room was famous. What was real and what wasn't, I don't know.
It was decorated like a brothel inside. It was all in red, and so we had a few laughs and a lot of drinks.
People looked forward to going and hanging out with him there at the end of the day, and he quite often invited me and my pals in, and we'd have a libation and have a nice visit, and it was very nice. When I went to the screening with the whole company and a lot of executives, and it was up on this big screen, it was very clear to me that we were looking at a movie, not a TV show.
A great deal of the quality of the show, the quality of the performances and the actual show came from Vic's direction.
The lighting was way beyond anything I'd seen in television. The whole thing was, the whole production value.
I was surprised. I was amazed how good the direction was.
I hadn't had that experience with any other show, and I'd done some pretty good shows, but nothing like that.
It was pretty clear. I mean, he just did a hell of a job.
I was quite overwhelmed by it. We all were.
All right.
It was enormously bigger than what we had expected.
Every ditch and every dip in the ground. It may come in handy the next time.
He was, just a hell of a nice guy to be around. And a talent, an enormous talent.
He had a very experimental type of mind, it went into little crazy corners with all of this background that he had. It just made him ideal for it. He could have been a really great director, but he didn't get the opportunities. It just didn't happen.
I worked with Vic once after that when I was an assistant. And it was just like old times, hugging him and everything. And you know what he told me? He knew I was going to get a chance to direct again. He said, "George, to hell with the schedule, to hell with the producers, to hell with that. Do it for yourself. Do it for yourself." I'm going, okay, Vic. God bless him. I loved him. I absolutely loved him.